Thanks for the enlightening lecture, sir.
Thank you.
These are the things we have never heard, never read in our schools. And one thing, just apart from this thing, one thing always, I always wondered when I was a kid, I was studying in standard 8 and when the modern history was being taught, that parallelly when the Battle of Plassey was going along in Bengal, after 4 years only third Battle of Panipat went. So just wanted to ask this thing: what was going in the mind of Marathas? They must be aware that the British are capturing the eastern portion of India. So did they plan anything for that, or had they I mean concentrated on the north only?
At that point of time, in 1757, when that Battle of Plassey had taken place, the British had been recognized as a threat, but they were not recognized as the most major threat in India. And the Marathas at that point of time wanted to establish themselves firmly in the north. The Battle of Panipat essentially was about capturing North India, establishing themselves in Delhi, and then move towards, the whole plan was to take this northern region, Delhi, and then move towards the UP, Bihar and Bengal region. Because Nana Sahib Peshwa's own letter is there, and you can hear me, right? So his own letter is there that once you have put these people in place, go towards the Awadh region, because that is where even today, right from the time of Ramayana Mahabharata, that is India's political core, the Awadh region. So go through the Awadh region and you put in place Bengal and Bihar also. So most probably it would have eventually come to that conflict, because the signs are already there that there is going to be a conflict with the British.
That's what I always want.
Yeah.
Nothing has been told to us in history. That is what the letter in the.
The whole idea was to establish in Delhi, in North India, and then move towards these places. Unfortunately, the third battle of Panipat didn't turn out as expected.
So you told about Sambhaji's capture. There are many theories that the character of Sambhaji or the strategies of Sambhaji was not very good, and we heard stories of Khandoji, Ballad and everything. What's your take? Was Sambhaji personally, was he a good kind of person?
Way I would put it is, he had one job to do: protect Swarajya, which he did. Yes. So I would say that his job was to keep Swarajya intact, and in 9 years he managed to do it. We might say that some of his policies were correct, wrong, but we have to remember that one thing: he is 25 years old when he starts off, which is a young age by any measure. He is going to have traits of a 25-year-old. He is being faced with a huge Mughal army, and given these circumstances, in retrospect we might feel right or wrong, but at that point of time perhaps it was the most correct thing to do from his point of view. And eventually what I would feel is that if we had lost 1690, if the Mughals had captured all of Maharashtra and there was nothing to fight for, if that had been the case, or if we had lost in first 2 or 3 years, then perhaps we can say that this policy was wrong, that policy was wrong. But eventually end goal was achieved, and he was achieved with a lot of personal bravery. He also took a lot of personal risk, because he gave shelter to Akbar II, who is Aurangzeb's own son, who had defected, who wanted to fight his own father. He had given protection to him. That was a great personal risk, because obviously a lot of effort are going to be directed towards Sambhaji only because of this reason. And I would say that given the circumstances operated under and the times operated under, he did what he was supposed to.
Marathas wanted to establish themselves as a major power in North India, but even though they had the means to do so, they never deposed the Mughals. So
Yeah.
what was the reason for that?
So I basically give my own opinion on this, because there is no really paper anywhere saying that these are 5 reasons why I did not depose the Mughals: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have to go through various, because it is not the only Chhatrapati Shahu who says that we don't want a Mughal. This has been reiterated multiple times. Chhatrapati Shahu did not want a Mughal deposed. Again in 1652, there was a 1652, when they had become very powerful in all of India, there is a Karar, there is a agreement between the Marathas and the Mughals that the Mughal will stay. There is again a case in 1772, when Maharaji Shinde has become very powerful in Gwalior in North India, where he actually brought the Mughal emperor had actually escaped from the Red Fort to Allahabad in 1772 because of some Afghan known as Zabita Khan. So he had escaped, and Maharaji Shinde brought him personally all the way from there and made him sit on the throne. Again in 1788, when the saffron flag was actually planted on Red Fort's walls, the Mughal was not removed. So obviously there were different people, different times when this Mughal had been preserved on the throne. So it's not a case of personal opinion of one or two persons doing it. It's just obviously a kind of policy. Somewhere some logical thing is going on here why the Mughal is in place. Because so many people can't do it out of love for history or something. Yeah. So essentially we come to that. So
Hello?
we go through various reasons as to why. One is that by the time the Marathas reached north, they had been firmly established in Pune and Satara as the capitals. It would be that the entire bureaucracy, everything was being controlled for capital city. Delhi did not have the kind of importance left anymore. It had been reduced to a symbolic importance because all these places have become somewhat independent. Punjab, Awadh, all this. It was a case of symbolic importance to remove the Mughal. Secondly, it was not just about removing one person and saying, oh, we want this person in place. What the Maratha were looking at was an ecosystem, a kind of system that had been put in place right since the time of Muhammad Ghori. From 1192, he had successive number of sultanates, all these people had come and they had completely taken over the administration. In fact, somebody had come up that day with an entire list of Kshatriya castes which are today doing the jobs of drain sweepers, toilet cleaners, garbage lifters. Why? Because their Kshatriya job was taken away by so and so king and so and so time. And that is why you find there is hardly any commander or any ruler of note in the late 1700s, late 1600s, Hindu commanders of note, because administration was simply in other hands. So it was a case of not only doing away with the Mughal, just one person, but doing away with this whole system which has been built up over 300, 400 years. So it was not going to happen in 20 or 30 years. Then it was going to be a big task of shifting their whole rule to North India. They are fully established, they built cities in Maharashtra. It takes some doing to shift the entire city to North. One person named Muhammad Tughlaq tried it in 1300s. And so, yeah. Also, one more thing we complete. Also, we do not find the British moving their capital from Calcutta for a very long time. So the same question can be put to them also. Why didn't they take out the Mughal? Because the same. Because fine, symbolically Mughal was this, that, and but practical consideration. Also, once they had got there, there were a lot of people trying to get into the city because Delhi, although it had shrunk in importance, it was a very rich city. Even in 1750s, when Ahmad Shah Abdali attacked, he took away 27,000 camels of loot in just one invasion of Delhi. So there, anyone sitting there would have to face problems from Jats, from Afghans, from Rajputs, from other various factors, from Rohilla, Afghans, this, that. So the Marathas wanted to reach to a stage where they were fully confident of holding that city and ruling from there. And Panipat essentially, why they had a large number of camp followers? Because they wanted to come and establish themselves over here. Unfortunately, that didn't go through, and hence the Mughal stayed as a puppet ruler. No, I think so because the capital had more or less shifted away. So whatever Hinduis, it's like Delhi was a central city back then, but it had shifted to Pune. And all the symbolism of Hindu Swaraj was there in whatever parts were being ruled by Marathas. There was a flag, saffron flag flying atop the Red Fort. So except the person of the Mughal, all these various changes are brought about. More importantly is a work carried out in cultural and social fields by the Marathas, where they did away with all these things, where they minted coins. Ahilyabai Holkar's contribution is especially important in this. What we must realize is that all this was happening in a time span of 40 to 50 years. Maybe another 50 years things would have been different, but within that point of time they did away with a lot of baggage of the past 300 years and established what was Swarajya in various parts of India. They did a lot of work for temples. The Nagpur Bhosles contributed majorly to the Jagannath temple in Orissa, which had been facing that faced 17 attacks before that. They stopped once Nagpur Bhosles came there. Of course, Ahilyabai Holkar and all these Peshwas, right from the Peshwa to the Shindes, Holkars, they did a lot of work on the cultural field. Essentially, where the Marathas established themselves Hindu rule was brought about in various ways, but it was a slow process, not going to happen immediately.
Yes. Uh, During this long war of 27 years, Chhatrapati Shahu, the future Chhatrapati Shahu, was actually a hostage of the Mughals. How come they didn't use this to their advantage?
The whole idea was that when Chhatrapati Shahu came of age, he would be made to accept Mughal vassalage. And since he was the king, that is how the whole land is going to come to the Mughals, because he had found out that simply killing people of Marathas are not helping. He had killed his father and nothing had come of it. So they tried, the whole plan was to use him as a pawn at the appropriate time, but Aurangzeb died before it, and more important than dying, he had lost the war. The whole idea was to browbeat the Marathas into submission, into defeat, and then use this as a pawn to start ruling over them. In some way, his escape did affect the Marathas because it created a division, which is later on known as the Kolhapur and Satara Gadis, because there was a power center at Kolhapur caused by Maharani Tarabai, who had been fighting these 7-8 years, and by Chhatrapati Shahu, who established himself at Satara, and he was the actual Chhatrapati. And this is how his escape did affect the politics later on, but Marathas were able to come out of it, fortunately.
Yeah. Excellent talk, Anish. One question that I had, and this is something that I've been thinking about for a while now, is that we see that the Marathas had established a wing in Tanjavur itself.
Yeah.
But we do not necessarily see the Tanjavur Marathas coming to help to the Marathas in Jinji,
Yes,
for
he
that
did,
matter, even in Jinji for that matter, forget coming all the way to the center
in
of the
Jinji he did. Shahaji II was the ruler in Tanjore at the time Chhatrapati Rajaram reached there. And there is definite evidence that he helped send supplies from Tanjore to Jinji. Not only supplies, but he also managed to send about 15,000 soldiers from Tanjore to Jinji. So there is not too much help, but definitely he recognized, first of all, he had established a Hindu kingdom in Tamil Nadu by freeing himself from Adil Shahi kingdom. And then he recognized that the Marathas were his stepbrothers, were in a huge problem, and whatever was his wherewithal, whatever was his means, Tanjore Marathas definitely helped Chhatrapati Rajaram at Jinji. But again, on the political side, they are not very prominent. Tanjore Marathas are more known for their cultural and social contributions. They gave a lot of patronage to Telugu and later on to Tamil literature, Marathi. Yeah.
Sir, what did Chhatrapati Shivaji mean by Hindu Swaraj, and what was the actual reason for the adoption of the Kesariya Dhwaj as a symbol of Maratha resistance and Indian native rule in resurgence?
Essentially, Hindavi Swaraj meant self-rule, Swaraj, and he recognized that these people had come from outside. In fact, there are letters, even when the Adil Shahi, which is a separate kingdom, which was going on, it was initially under the rule of Deccani Muslims, under Kannadiga Muslims. When the Pathans in that kingdom were getting powerful, there are letters by Shivaji saying that the Pathans are outsiders, they are not supposed to become powerful in Karnataka. And obviously, for his own Swaraj, there was a case that there could not be any outsiders there. So it was about self-rule and all these symbolism. He did Bhasha Shuddhikaran. There were too many Persian words in Marathi. He removed them. He minted coins. He adopted the Bhagwa Dhwaj. Bhagwa Dhwaj comes right from ancient times, right from Agni Swaj. It is a Hindu symbol recognized right from the time of Rama and Mahabharata, perhaps earlier. So this was a very Hindu symbolic statement to adopt that flag, to remove Persian words, from the administration. And not only that, but he carried out a Rajyabhishek which was according entirely to Hindu rites. So this is what he meant by Hindavi Swaraj, that this is our land and we are going to rule it according to our customs. There was no logic in Turks and Afghans speaking Persian ruling from any place in Maharashtra or Delhi for that matter. So this is what was Hindavi Swaraj for him.
Thank you, Aneesh. 2 weeks back, again on the same period, there was a presentation with reference to that. I like your comment. One was, like you mentioned just now, there were two after release of the
Shahu.
Sahuji, there were two things. There was one question that why the east was not covered. What I understand from that last thing, I may not have understood correctly, that the other one were given the power of the east if they can capture something of that
No.
sort. That was one thing, and another thing about some treaty which was signed that they will protect Mughals or something. In reference to what he said, that why they didn't remove. There was I forgot that the treaty was there that we will protect
Yeah.
Delhi or something regarding that. What's your comment on that?
1715 between Bahaji Vishwanath and Mughals. Right. Now, there are two things. You had Chhatrapati Shahu, who was at Satara. He was the de facto ruler. At that point of time, the king's son was the king. In today's time, we might think differently that he has just escaped from Mughal camp and come to the southern regions, so come to Maharashtra. But at that point of the prevalent thinking was in terms of dynasty. So, on the basis of this, he was able to get a lot of Sardars such as Swaji Vishwanath to his side. At the same time, Tarabai had fought for about 7 years continuously against the Mughals, but she was a woman, she could not rule as per the prevalent customs. The other person was Sambhaji. Sambhaji was Maharani Tarabai's stepson, and this is how you got two separate positions. One is that Kolhapur is the power center, Satara is the power center. And now we are looking at Marathas fighting among themselves for the rest of their lives. So Bahaji Vishwanath also realized that by this time Maharashtra had been completely swept clean of all kind of wealth, because it had been 27 years of warfare. There was hardly anything left in Maharashtra, and somewhere Chhatrapati Shahu felt that he needed to find a shell where the Marathas could grow again, find of enclave or a protected area. And so the Sanad with the Mughals, it has multiple things in it. One is that it recognizes Chhatrapati Shahu as the Chhatrapati and grants him the Chauthai and Sardeshmukhi rights, that is 1/4 produce for that Sardar, and 1/10 of that taxation goes to the Chhatrapati himself for 6 provinces in the Deccan. Also, the same Sanad says that Kolhapur will be recognized as independent. That particular power center will be independent. These two, Shahu and they will not fight against each other, and he can rule his kingdom as he wants. So,
Given the rights to capture the east, they didn't do Australia.
the capture the east rights were given to Raghuji Bhosle later on. Raghuji Bhosle was related to Shahu by way of marriage and all this. This happened in much later in 1750s when Nana Sahib Peshwa was sent towards Bihar. Nana Sahib Peshwa went towards Bihar, Gaya, he captured some parts of Jharkhand and he came down. Raghuji Bhosle at the same time was going from Nagpur towards Bengal. These two persons, they clashed at a place in somewhere in Chhattisgarh or Bengal, I'm not sure. Place called Bendu Pass. They clashed, and Chhatrapati Shahu now had to decide between two very powerful Sardars of his, one his own Peshwa and the other Raghuji Bhosle, as to what is going to happen next, because you can't have people fighting against each other. So Chhatrapati Shahu decided in 1750s that the east belongs to Raghuji Bhosle and the provinces to the north belong to the Peshwa, and that is how the Bhosles grew in Orissa. It has little to do with this conflict with Kolhapur. Kolhapur doesn't figure very strongly in that. Later on, in the sense of empire building, Maharani Tarabai becomes prominent later on in 1750s again when she is about 70 years old, and when she becomes prominent, it tries to take part in politics. But as far as Maratha expansion is concerned, that house did not play a role in later history. As far as preserving the Mughal is concerned, again the reasons we go back to why I mentioned why the Mughal had to be preserved. So by doing so, they got the Sanad. That Sanad was still effective. It was difficult because a unity of all these Muslim commanders could be prevented as a result. What it did was that the Marathas could now enter the Mughal court and play off factions against each other, which is what they did. The whole idea was to play off the Irani-Turani factions against each other, and that is how Marathas established the rule on Delhi, by playing off the various factions in Delhi to their advantage. Yes, this Sanad is controversial. There are many historians who are of the view that it was wrong to sign it. There are many of the view who say that according to that condition, Bahaji Vishwanath did a good job. So, but we have the benefit of hindsight. And at that point of time, 1713, when Bajirao was 13 years old, they did not know that he was going to capture the whole of India later on. And they had been fighting a war. It was 27 years of warfare going to completely destroy any place fighting that war. So they had to really find a place where they could protect themselves and grow and not face a threat again from the north. So in that case, perhaps it was a correct decision.
Now, I believe that the name Hindu Kush was given after one of the biggest genocides that the world has ever seen, after the skulls of after the mountain of Hindu skulls which were raised. What was this mountain range known before it was named Hindu Kush?
I believe the associate name is Paryapt Parvat. Yeah. No, well, no, there is a various this Hindu Kush name. There are various theories as to why it's named Hindu Kush. It was named, I believe, Paryapt Parvat in Sanskrit before it came under Farsi and Turkic influence. Now the word Hindu Kush, one as you said is correct. One interpretation is that it means Hindu slaughter, Kush as in slaughter, and it was because a large number of slaves were being carried from North Indian plains towards the Uzbekistan, Afghanistan region from where all these people came. So when they retreated, they took away slaves with them, and all these slaves who had spent all their time in North India were unable to bear that journey through the Khyber Pass because of the cold, because of the harsh conditions, and they died in the Khyber Pass, and hence because of the large number of Hindus dying, it was named Hindu Kush. That is one theory, which is considered to be correct by many. There is another theory saying that Hindu Kush is a corruption of the word Hindu Ko. Ko meaning mountain, we have meaning Kohinoor. We have Kohinoor meaning mountain of light. So similarly, this Ko has got corrupted to Kush. Also, we have the language which is prevalent in Hindu Kush, so known as Hindko, which is again come from the same word. So yes, one of the theories is about this, but not confirmed as to exactly how it came about, this word.
Okay.